up, everybody? I know no one's gotten in the room yet. Tonight's show is going to be about George Bush, and we're going to try to find out if he's an alien or not.
I think he is.
You do think he's an alien?
That's my conviction.
A lot about the alien thing. To start, I'd like to tell everyone who's going to be in the room tonight. I'm your host, Nick J. This is my co-host, Leslie, who needs to pick a pseudonym. Moderator is going to be Marla Singer, to my left, off camera. Special guest, Howard Warwick. You can say something, Howard.
Hello.
Don't go overboard. Don't wear your vocal cords out. We have a special call-in guest, the Jew, who's going to call in and talk about separation of church and state. It's going to be really interesting. And we welcome callers to call in. The best way to do that is to put your call request and your phone number in chat. When you do ask questions in chat, put it in red. And sometimes it's a good idea to put a question mark at the end of it. And the moderator will ask us the question or the guest. You can also request by whispering to have your number called, but she'll probably make sure that you're not in the same person before she calls you. Don't try to request a call-in while we have callers in the room. So we're going to start off talking about George Bush and whether he's an alien. And the first thing I'm going to do is talk about Bush facts, which are always fun. Do you know what happened to the... Are you going to read those, or am I going to read them?
I will.
Okay. What I'm going to do first is the thing that pissed me off the most before I started the show. Actually, what I really wanted to do was find pro-Bush people to be on the show tonight, and
We couldn't find any. It's hard to do.
nobody likes Bush. I called Bush's mother, and she wouldn't even be. No,
Barbara.
I didn't even call Bush's mother. Actually, she wouldn't talk to me. So I did have no luck finding Bush supporters. I did email Republican conservative media celebrities, and that we don't even need this, and that got me nowhere because I don't think even they're taken seriously. So what I'm going to have to do is attempt to put a spin on Bush and make him sound like he might not be an alien, because our thesis is going to be that it is impossible for Bush to be in office, and the only way it's possible rationally is if an alien race is actually in charge of the planet and placed him there in order to wear out my internal organs. Unless you have another solution, but I know you're a conspiracy theorist.
Of course.
Is there any other explanation besides aliens?
Of why he's in office?
Yeah.
I can't think of any.
Because actually you believe in the alien thing more than I do.
I do. I think it's very, very probable that Bush is actually an alien.
Could he just be a human and the aliens are controlling him? I mean, is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible too.
It's just so dumb. So we're going to talk about some of George Bush's high points for a second, and we're going to talk about whether this is going to persuade you. I know most people already hate Bush, so if you do call in, I do want a Bush supporter, but what I don't want is a moron Bush supporter. Well, I guess that's redundant in some sense. If you are listening to the show, or if you start jumping in the show when we become featured in a little bit, which is probably the way we are in about 20 minutes, try to encourage a real Bush supporter to call in or write questions with something that makes some kind of sense. Because I know there are people out there that write books about Bush that like Bush and that have something to say. There was a guy in Bill Maher, what, Friday Night, is that right?
Yeah, Friday.
Who was pro-Bush, right?
He was
He was
pro-Bush.
certainly pro-Cheney. They wouldn't let him talk on the show, but
He got pretty mad,
the guy that got mad because he wasn't able to talk.
and because everyone was against him.
Everyone's against me, and I'm not mad about it. What, I am mad
You're
about
kind
it?
of bitter about it.
I'm bitter?
I think so.
Is that true?
You hide it well most of the time, but I think there's a
Yeah,
little bit of bitter.
this isn't the Bush Alien Show. This is the psychology show. What is really going on with Jim? Or what's my name? Nick.
Nick.
That's my middle name is Jim. So,
Jim.
what was I saying?
Nobody
The
knows.
guy in Bill Maher. He was actually trying to draw a parallel between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. And it sounded like he had something to say. Bill Maher wouldn't let him talk.
Yeah.
That kind of just... Did you watch Bill Maher that night, didn't you?
Yeah.
What do you think about that guy?
Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins.
With
Tim Robbins on there, and that's Sean Penn's dad, so we got nowhere with him.
That this other guy that we're talking about, whose name we can't remember.
Right. I don't think he had a name. That was like Michael
He was
something.
partly
Michael Fay.
responsible also for the public's belief that there was a connection between Al Qaeda and Iraq because he wrote a book saying that.
Right. Just stay 3 to 6 inches from the microphone. Good, fine. you got the best mic.
I thought we wrote his name down.
We did. I wrote his name down, so I wanted to send him an email
Harris or-
and tell him if you want to say something, you can come on the show because
Because no one would let him
no
talk.
one let him talk until
I can't
tomorrow.
remember his name though, but
You know what? He gave him a couple seconds to talk, and he just wore me out.
he did wear everyone out.
I mean, he didn't say. Bill Maher goes, "Okay, explain to me the link." The guy's like, "Well, the link." Right? No. Well, okay, what was the link? Well, it was the link. Like he didn't. He
No,
wrote a
there
whole
was
book
a
about
link.
it.
There is no link.
Well, we don't know that. That's
It's
why
like
we got the
one
guy that wrote the damn book.
Some
It was a
loosely
document, right.
interpreted document.
Right, it was
Yeah,
a document from one of the investigations. Then the guy that wrote the document said, I find a strong link between these two.
Our online audience actually has an idea for why Bush was elected. That's what happens when you let everyone vote. So maybe we should take an IQ
Is the
test.
Jew already in the room?
The Jew is in the room.
Was it him?
Yeah. So another viewer said that perhaps
Ringer's supposed to be on.
people should have to pass an IQ test.
Philosophy Live, can I help you? Okay, hold on one second. I know who it is. Hey, are you going to say something about George Bush, Mr. Max? Hey, you have to turn the volume down on your computer. We're going to do all kinds of call-ins tonight since we don't have our regular guest. Our regular guest got stoned and didn't make it into the show tonight. You guys still hear your
I can
echo?
still hear his back. Yeah.
You just turn it off. Hey, do you have something to say about George Bush, or are you going to just start a new thread? How'd you see her?
Yeah, how did you see him?
She did?
That's all he's been saying in the chat room. He's fired.
Yeah, we've been trying to get him to do it, but it's not working really that well.
And it's not Kara, it's Marla.
Hey, that's a good idea. Hey, will you do me a favor? Will you call back and say something pro Bush? Hey, it's a test. It's like a, what do they call it when you practice something? You're gonna say something pro Bush right now? All right. Should be. Are we getting audio from them? Yeah, we turned up your volume on the mixing board. You should be on. Our listeners should be able to listen to you. We're not featured yet, so there's not that many.
No, he's on.
Yeah, you're on. You are live, Mr. Max. Dude, is there any way to really believe your own argument? Because you didn't sound like you believed that one. Seriously, we can't get a good argument out of anyone. Unless you really believe that. You might believe that, but I can tell by the way you said it, you don't. Do you think it boosted the economy, maybe? Enjoying libations? Is that what you just said? Okay. Really? Hey, do you know any Bush supporters? Like, if you had like a year to prepare for a show, could you find a Bush supporter that made sense? Like they had an argument, they had evidence or something. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't even work. Getting that chick on the show would be a disaster. Could you find someone to support Bush? What about the music industry? I bet they love Bush in the music industry. Where do you
Yeah.
Yeah. Joking. I'm having a sarcasm moment.
You are having sarcasm.
Hey, the Dixie Chicks were pro Bush, weren't they?
Yes.
I think Matthew McConaughey was pretty good.
Matthew McConaughey, might be. Is he a singer too? Yeah,
No,
he's a
an-
band.
Well, he's an actor, but
Hey, isn't Matthew McConaughey in a band? Right, because didn't he also win a band? Isn't he like Keanu Reeves where he started his own stupid
No,
band?
he just Russell
the
Crowe.
Broncos
That's
once.
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Russell Crowe, Matthew McConaughey, it's all the same crew. They all make gladiator movies. Okay, well Max, will you look up some pro-Bush stuff and call me back? Well, you can talk to him when you want to talk to one of them. Hold on. Max wants to talk to you. It might be about Bush, it might be about your top. I'm not sure.
Hey. It's about my shirt.
Let's make fun of him. Tell him to go vote
No,
for
I'm
Bush.
not. You're supposed to be researching pro-Bush arguments.
And tell him George Bush, not the other Bush.
Kara, he's
Kara's not in the room. Marla Singer's here.
Marla
and
Singer.
Marla Singer doesn't believe in nudity.
You know what? If you try to take the rogue's clothes off, you end up with a bra and underwear.
That's true.
Like you can't get her totally naked.
That's true.
I don't think we want to do that really. It's supposed to be a serious show now.
That was awesome.
I know, they don't even let me drink anymore, but
That was the funniest thing ever. Tell him what you did. Tell him what happened last show.
no, I
You got
probably
drunk?
saw. Well, here's what's your name?
Which I don't even know what it is. Hey. And this is George Bush, right? This isn't what you find when girls drop their pants. Okay. All right, call me back. Thanks for cooperation.
The Jew's pretty upset that Leslie got cut off.
What do you mean that she got cut off? Did you get cut off?
No, cut off from drinking.
Sit.
So a lot of people liked it. That's my point.
At least just one or two.
She
Wait,
did
is that
really-
your vocabulary? 1 or 2?
Yeah, you know what? We talked about this actually, and we're getting off the Bush topic again, but we talked about how every time she goes, let's get one. Just gonna have two. Just gonna have two.
Oh, I'll just have one more.
Well, if you give me like a little bottle, then like I'll run out sooner. So.
Okay, last time we hid the bottle, okay, and you found another one. And it wouldn't
Come on,
surprise me
like
if you were in the
every-
back distilling liquor,
Ugh.
if we hid all the
My
bottles.
name's Leslie. I am not an alcoholic. Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to George Bush here, and again, if you are a pro-Bush philosopher of some sort and have something articulate to say about it, please call in. I know you want to know our phone number, so go to our website, which is philosophylive.com. Also,
Or if you're a science fiction expert who knows how to quickly identify an alien when you see one.
we're going to talk about that in a minute, actually. No, Howard, I'm just going to start asking you questions. In a minute, I'm just going to say please, because I think we actually have proof that Bush is an alien. That's the point of the show. So we're definitely going to get to that. But I would like to go through the report on George Bush, talking about all of the pluses and minuses that I found so far. Those are my 2 columns. That's a good column. That's the bad column. So the mess ups so far that we've been able to highlight. You know what? Before I do that, though, I'm going to read this little known fact. I didn't know this. I'm just going to read this paragraph to you. In the televised Republican presidential debate held in Des Moines, Iowa, on December 13, 1999, which is obviously before the first election, all of the participating candidates were asked, "What political philosopher or thinker do you most identify with and why?" Unlike most of the other candidates, this is paraphrasing now, our wonderful, not paraphrasing anymore, former president, the other people cited former presidents and other political figures, but our wonderful to be president responded, "Christ, because he changed my heart." Bush's appeal to religious values seems to have aided him in the general election. In the Gallup poll, those who said they attend church weekly gave him 56% of their votes in 2000 and 63% in 2004. During the election cycle, Bush labeled himself a compassionate conservative, and his political campaign promised to restore honor and dignity to the White House, a reference to the scandals and impeachments of his predecessor. And this was taken from Wikipedia. The point being, 2 points actually, that Christ is his philosopher and that he used the word heart. Really worries me.
Which is completely illegal.
It is actually illegal to use the word heart in any reference outside of Seton Hospital.
Yes, that's right.
The problem that Bush has using Christ as a philosopher, as you all know that watch our show, is that neither Bush nor Christ understand philosophy in any way and are both demagogue, moron, retards. Okay, that just pissed Craig off because I didn't provide any evidence, as if that requires evidence. So I'm going to go down the list of Bush good and bad points. Good point. I don't have one on this. The bad points: Iraq War, Katrina, Abu Ghraib, NSA warrantless surveillance, Scooter Libby, Guantanamo Bay, Gonzalez, attorney scandal, and signing statements. If anyone knows about these signing statements, please call in, because I thought that was the most interesting, because that was considered to be the mess up that has brought up the subject of impeachment, which is always what I've asked, is if he's not an alien, how come he doesn't get impeached? And maybe you have an answer for that one, because you're a conspiracy theorist.
No, but I do have a good point, maybe,
Okay.
that my aunt used to always argue with me about when I try to tell her all these things about Bush,
Well, you want to talk about your experience first?
about with my family.
Yeah. It's a little bit about where you come from, what's going on here, just because the readers,
Well, I'm
the viewers
from-
all like you, and they want to know some context.
I'm from a very small rural town village in South Louisiana, Bayou
Village.
Country, and they're all very religious people and pretty isolated, I'd say, from the rest of the world. And of course, they all like Bush, and they all voted
This
for
is
him.
pretty common small town stuff, right? And this is
Yeah.
how this alien got elected, clearly.
Yeah, because they do vote.
And everyone of them voted for Bush.
Yeah, everyone that I know, especially in my family, and I don't imagine anybody else in that area would not vote for Bush, because that's just how they do things.
So explain to me why your family members decided they wanted to vote for Bush. Like, what was their
Well, I mean,
reasoning,
because
if any?
he's a Christian. He says he's a Christian, and he claims Christ, and so that's what they believe in. That's what they all want out of a good president. So regardless of his actions, that's what he says. So
So
it's
his
true.
politics aren't really what's important.
No, it's
his
that-
faith.
Yeah, his faith, and also they think he's kind of cute.
He's not that bad looking.
Gosh,
He's
yeah.
really not that bad looking. I would
That's
vote
why
for him
you
on
need to vote
looks.
for a president?
Oh, a positive.
Then he opens his mouth.
He runs.
Oh, he's healthy.
He's healthy.
Hey, okay. Very
Well, but we're kind of stretching it now.
Well,
Because really, that's a
Hard to
negative. Because if
toss
you
him,
didn't
but I-
run, maybe you'd have a heart attack and die when you put a real president in.
Hey, but TJ wants to know why do we insult the aliens by calling Bush one?
Yeah.
We actually don't think that Bush is an alien. We think that he's the pawn of the aliens. At least that's what I think. He's here for our
That
entertainment.
was my theory. He's not. You think
He's
an
not
alien.
actually an alien.
Well,
He's a pawn of the aliens
I'm
to
not.
entertain
I'm
them.
undecided on that.
I meet a lot of people that are like George Bush. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't surprise me that he's a human. It surprises me that he's a president.
Yeah.
I actually thought people were kidding. I remember a friend of mine, Brandy, who I don't talk to anymore, called me the day after, I think it was the second election, crying on the phone saying that she wanted to move to Switzerland or something. You remember Brandy, don't you?
hyperbole.
Oh, God. You know, at least pronounce the word right.
I know.
Hyperbole. Come on, man.
The epitome of hyperbole.
Hyperbole.
I have it on good authority that is not true.
Is it divine authority?
No. Sure.
Okay. I do want to get back into the facts of the case, though. And I do want you, Howard, to talk to us about how we may actually find reasonable arguments for him being an alien. Just make sure you're getting good audio, because I may fall out of my seat, because this is the funniest crap I've ever heard in my life.
Well, there are a few things that we want to, that might point to the fact that he's an alien. Like, for instance, extraterrestrials sometimes practice mind control.
That's pretty funny.
And
So this is how to identify
make
extraterrestrials.
humans believe untrue things.
Yeah?
So,
This is how to define aliens, right?
yeah. All characteristics of aliens.
Okay.
They can see things that the rest of us can't see.
Huh.
WMDs,
That's right.
They don't have our same values, like they ignore things like the Constitution and.
Well, why would they? Coming
Right.
from another
Well, they
planet.
don't care. It's just fun and games for them. They stick together. Aliens stick together, apparently.
So Cheney's an alien too, is what we're finding out.
Right. That's why he's so loyal, because he has to bring in all of the other aliens. They don't feel good or comfortable if they don't have their whole little colony.
That makes sense.
They have no long-term plans for Earth because they don't plan on retiring here. They're just going to get on their ship and go home.
That would make
Just blow
sense.
it up.
No long-term plans for Earth. We need those Bill Maher signs where you flip them over. And number one.
They want our resources.
That's funny.
They want our human resources. The army. That's energy, oil. Probably our labor resources.
So it could be that Bush is stealing our resources and sending them back to his planet.
Could be. That's why he's an oil man.
That makes sense.
Their greatest vulnerability apparently is that they take themselves seriously. I also
nowadays.
found that aliens tend to have really rigid movements and just sort of a blank stare. So, all of these things seem to point to Bush's non-human status.
I think you're selling me on that one. Okay, so what we're going to try to concentrate on the show is separation of church and state also. When our sub-theme, still in relation to Bush, is the idea that we may or may not understand what we mean when we say separation of church and state, specifically related to the Constitution, specifically related to, if you want, the way Bush seems to treat separation of church and state, money to churches, specific to the Supreme Court. What we're going to try to do first of all is talk about someone. We have a Bush supporter, but we need to turn this off and into the other one. Philosophy Live. Nothing. Is this Max again?
Turn down the volume on your
Turn down the
computer.
volume. Okay. 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 He's not an alien. Okay. You're like me. But maybe we're not even saying he's dumb. Maybe we're not targeting that. Maybe we think that the aliens in some way are playing a joke on us by having him be president. I see what you're saying. Their technology is so great, it doesn't really make sense that they would get all the way here and then not believe in evolution. George Bush proves evolution, so he's kind of the link between animal and rational thought. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
How did you know I was a homosexual? I haven't told anyone that. But my hair? Yeah, my hair is bad. Well, I'm appealing to my gay audience, actually. I knew you were bringing up the Tic Tac. Okay, go find something that makes me think there's some actual evidence that George Bush has done something that's not wrong. Well, I'll tell you what, you're not going to find any if you look up Iraq War, Katrina, Abu Ghraib, NSA, Scooter Libby, Guantanamo Bay, Anthony Gonzalez, and signing statements. So look elsewhere. You know what? Look into tax cuts. Hey, look into tax cuts. Because I think the Republicans forced him to do tax cuts, and it gave money back, even though it was mostly to the rich, but it did stimulate the economy, because I believe in tax cuts, because I hate taxes. Look into that. Maybe you can find something. If someone's going to kill you? Just try. I just tried. You can try. Just find something. Look up tax cuts. If you find something, call me back. If you find a girl, call me back. At the same time. Who wants to make out with both of you at the same time? And you said my hair makes me look gay.
Max the pervert.
I do want to talk about the approval ratings, because Bush's approval rating when he first went into office in 2000, I think, was hovering around 50%, which is fairly normal. And after September 11th, for 3 to 4 months, his approval rating jumped to 85 to 95%. You guys find that kind of weird?
Mm-hmm.
I understand this war thing, the solidarity or whatever it is, but 85 to 95. Anyway, the point was they liked the way that he reacted after 9/11. But since then, in 2006, his approval rating dropped to 37%, the lowest since Truman in 1951 for a second-term president. And in 6 of 07, it dropped to 26%, the lowest for any president in 35 years. So what we're finding is there isn't any people that, yeah, we're still not featured. There still isn't anyone that supports Bush, and that's why we can't get him on the show.
Did you write down any of the foreign perceptions? I got a couple right here. That 18 in 21 countries surveyed held an unfavorable opinion of him.
18 to 21.
Countries.
Everyone hates George Bush, though.
I know.
That's the thing.
And also, he was named the second biggest threat to world peace after Bin Laden, and he beat out Kim Jong Il. That's pretty
good.
bad.
Yeah.
I think that's bad.
Yeah. So we're going to try to slide the show into separation of church and state, because that's really what I want to talk about. We do have someone coming on the show, Liv the Magnificent, who is going to discuss his ideas, and they're not going to be exactly what my ideas would be, because I've always obviously been, yeah, it's a good idea. My ideas have always been, like Thomas Jefferson's in 1802, creating a wall between church and state, and what that seems to suggest is a kind of protection from both sides, and we'll bring this up when we get this guy on the phone. But that seems to suggest a protection from both sides, almost like a kind of give and take, which means, yeah, that's right. That's his real name. That's funny. He said I have to call him the Jew. I can't call him the Magnificent anymore.
Why not?
It's just more colorful. So I think we've got the Jew on the phone, and I'm going to try to get him on here.
Yeah.
Are we ready to go?
Hold on.
Mr. Jew? Are you there? I can barely hear him.
Can you turn this one off?
You can hear me just fine? Yeah, turn it on. Can you hear me now? Ah, there we go. It's that evil phone.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't ever have that on. Well, it's nice to have you on the show, Mr. Jew. Oh, good, I'm glad. So what we're talking about now is we've shifted from Bush is an alien, and I think you're watching the show, so you probably heard our actual evidential argument that he's an alien based on what we found about him. Somebody's calling me an anti-Semite?
Yeah, we're calling him the Jew.
That's like calling Nietzsche an anti-Semite. That's very nice of you to even say that. Yeah. Well, we could be calling you the Jew and like Jews. Isn't that right? And Jewish people in general seem to separate religion from ethnicity. Hey, you anti-Semite! Me or him?
Him, you're too loud.
You need to speak up a little bit if you can in the phone.
And you need to be more quiet.
Yeah. And I have to be quiet, which is very difficult for me.
We know.
So, do you have anything to say about the alien thing before we move into the separation of church and state? Because I know you're interested in that topic. Right. But you don't think he's an alien? Do you think he's a human being? Because you've met other human beings that are like him. This is why you're the Jew. But look at it. Look at the overall picture. Is I guess what I'm asking. Like, if he is just a normal person, that's fine. But how does a normal person that stupid make it into office if there's not some kind of conspiracy that we don't know about? You don't think he's stupid? Are you pro-Bush at all? Because I'm starting to get the feeling that'd be great. You're just kind of neutral. It doesn't do any good that we spend so much time lambasting the administration, is what you're saying. Right. Well, that's kind of an interesting perspective. I figured you would say something different. Because I would think you would agree with me that, I mean, maybe you're saying relatively speaking to other candidates, but I think you would agree that with me that you need more of a philosopher as a president. Because clearly, no, they didn't have philosophy class at Yale. That seems obvious. Really? So you think he may have some philosophical things to say, we're just not letting him say it? He was in Harvard too? Oh, he scared me. Well, yeah, but that doesn't say whether we should be president or not. And that doesn't say whether we're philosophers or not. Which he didn't get. I was under the impression that he didn't. And that we had to go to the Congress to make a decision, and they, for the sake of expediency, put him in office. That's not what happened.
He had the popular vote.
Well, this stuff has really damaged me intellectually, so it's hard for me to remember, actually. I sometimes think Clinton's still in the presidency. Oh, yeah. Do you really think Hillary Clinton's going to win? Because I don't.
No.
Really? I can't see a woman or a black guy being president yet. Partially because of Bush being in office. If you look at the kind of people that elected Bush, I think you could probably, from that, deduce some kind of information about who would make it in 2008. I thought you were always right. That's why you're the Jew. Really? You're trying to sound like Socrates. But you know, when Socrates said that, he really meant, I'm wrong all the time. He really meant you're a moron and I'm not wrong all the time. Oh, nice. Okay, so let's get to the separation of church and state. I know you got some great things to say about it, and I know what you have found and what you know about the church and state from your extensive background in American, all forms of history. Right, so why don't we talk a little bit about separation of church and state and how that deviates, let's say, first from the common conception of separation of church and state. Right, so it's what it doesn't say that is important when people are talking about separating church and state. Right. Right. So all the talk we hear about taking religion out of politics is not something that has anything to do with First Amendment and separation of church and state as it was conceived. Yeah, I did actually read that. What about the Thomas Jefferson 1802 comment about the law?
Max. Yeah.
What did he say?
Can the caller please be more interesting? I'm falling asleep.
You think that's taking it too far? Yeah, I mean it's not an unpersuasive argument. I've heard other people say that. The problem would then be, from a philosophical standpoint, is how bad you think religion is. Even if you're saying, oh yeah, that's taking it too far, the question about actually setting up this wall and actually taking religion off, for instance, the money out of the courtrooms, out of the hospitals, those kinds of things. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying if you take it to an extreme like you're doing, I would agree with you. But when you talk about it in terms of taking these decisions away from people in politics, in other words, finding out more about politicians and their religious views before they even go into office, and then talking about these things, how much of their religious views go into their policy making. think what Thomas Jefferson, I mean, I get what you're saying about that, but I think what Thomas Jefferson is saying, and then how I interpret that now, is that some of these things are so centered on Christianity that in a sense it is focusing too much on one religion. Does that make sense? We're not talking about taking Muslim prayers out because no one's doing it. Right. So, well, I happen to know you are kind of an anti-religious guy, though. Really? Why is that? Just so I can get my bearings here, because I'm going to ask you a question. Well, okay, I think coming from that perspective, then I see what you're saying, but most atheists believe that there's something pernicious in the philosophical religious mindset, which means that in a vacuum of philosophy ideas, you have some kind of danger to the nation state, to everything that trickles down from that, including education, medicine, law. And when you have this kind of vacuum like we do in the highest office right now, especially when that vacuum is filled with something like Christianity, which is both a vacuum and a kind of adherence to something that historically has been pretty devastating. But as we know, it's not the same Christianity, and that's kind of my point, is that the Christianity that they are espousing, I'm not saying take them out of the high school games, I see what you're saying, but in all these contexts, what we're talking about is a Christianity that wasn't deist, that wasn't the kind of Christianity that the Founding Fathers were interested in at all. Hey, are you the host here? What are they doing now? I mean, I think that's what I was saying. I think this vacuum that they've created is actually the biggest danger. It's not necessarily the laws that they put into effect. It's not the money that they put in. It's not necessarily the control they have over the hospitals, even though those things are bad. I think it's actually the effect that an anti-intellectual environment has on all of the people that are using the system to become educated and to educate their kids. And I think the deist viewpoint was that man and God is purely subjective. Does that make sense? And Thomas Jefferson even said that. He said all these things are about man and God, and we don't want it to go any further because, and he even said this, and I quote the word, and he said because those are matters of opinion. And what we have now is not matters of opinion. We don't have a relativistic perspective from the Christians. We have a perspective where we know what's right and we know what's wrong, and we're deriving all of our morality from that, which is the next part of our show. I think we're going to talk about morality. She would probably say yes, from what I've heard. But again, that's such a small sample that doesn't help or hurt your argument. We actually had a religious guy in the show. I don't know if you watched the show with Doug. It was actually last Sunday's show. And he made a lot of the same arguments that essentially the Christianity that he was supporting, the Christianity that he believed in, was different than all these other Christianities. And for me and Sigmund Freud, we see a Christianity that's pretty consistent. Consistent over, 17, a little less maybe than less than 1,700 years. We see a Christianity that is consistent and does believe itself to be right. nice of you to say that. It makes me feel really warm inside. Well, you do see that's what I'm saying. I mean, you see ultimately what I'm saying is there's a radical group that's been in power for 1,700 years. No one listened to Nietzsche when he called them out, and part of what I'm doing is trying to call them back out, and in this particular show I'm calling them out in respect to the influence that this one religion has beyond, I mean, there's no doubt that it's the one we're talking about, and there's no doubt I think that it has a definition, and I'm calling them out in terms of influencing their moral position through politics, and I believe it a bad moral position. If it was a good moral position, I would say maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, the government's doing, but I wouldn't be ranting and raving about it the way I am. Does that make sense? Who are you, Hegel? Hegel believed that there was ultimately history was a dialectic and the truth was a dialectic, and that it was about two sides arguing, and one would always gain more power, and then there would be like a usurping of power, and then a new dialectic would occur. Right. Except that, yeah, no. You can't. And that's the Constitution. Before I let you go, though, will you talk a little bit more about interpretation of the Constitution? Because you've said that you're a constructionist and not a whatever the word was. Yeah, I know she's still here, Thomas. Right. But what if the Constitution's missing something? Like what you said. I mean, if you don't want to interpret it and subjectivize it, what if it's absolutely missing something? Because like what you said is that this is addressing what the Constitution does address is politics sponsoring one religion and enforcing that on people and saying you have to believe in this and you have to believe in this. So in essence, it's missing something. If you think religion's dangerous, if you think Christianity is dangerous, it's missing something. Okay? That's interesting. In other words, what we find always is that there was more states' rights 200 years ago. Right. So what we would end up having, though, is a bunch of discrepancy between states' decisions. And that's what you believe in. And I can't disagree with you in terms of politics because I do, you know me, I'm an old school Republican. But I think what you see from that, again, in history is that because an issue that important, slavery, was something not addressed by the Constitution, we ended up having a war. And I think what I see now is a war that needs to happen in terms of the same kind of problem. Didn't we have a civil war then? Oh, okay. So what I'm saying is that was in some ways a product of this unclear position on slavery, on that kind of moral evaluation, on that kind of position. But it ended up in a civil war rather than in a court battle in some ways, probably, in at least some small way, because it wasn't going to be solved using the former method. I mean, using the latter method. And I'm saying this is another one. And I'm saying that because of how bad I think it's gotten. All right. Well, all I'm going to do before I let you go is encourage you to think about what you already know, which is how moronic everybody is. You know where I'm going. Okay, well, did you want to make any other last comments or plug any books that you've written? You want to plug yourself? Couldn't have been put any better from the Jew. All right. Well, thanks a lot for calling, or letting us call you, and hopefully we'll talk to you in the future. All right, bye. I just can't be Nick. Just can't be. Or how hard I try. Someone called me Jim again.
I know.
Another person that just, I can't bang the table. Well, we need like some kind of cushion on the
Well,
table.
we have one and toss it aside. So we don't need this anymore. There's that thing.
I do that with women too sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone knows.
Okay, so tonight's topic is about George Bush being an alien. The sub-theme tonight is separation of church and state. We are live on philosophylive.com. All of you that are watching us from philosophylive.com, feel free to go into the chat room, ask your questions in red. You can call in. The phone number is on philosophylive.com. We also were supposed to be stopping to talk about our sponsor, superfishstore.com. Great wholesale retail seller of
For all
aquarium.
your aquarium and pet needs.
Yes, there's the spokeswoman. You can go to superfishstore.com and buy pet products, home products, and aquarium products. We may or may not be on KSIR 100.1 in Austin and Lake Travis. We were last Sunday. I have not heard back, so I don't know.
Sovereign American Radio.
We'll quit plugging them if we're not going to be online. I mean, if we're not going to be on
I don't
air.
know, we just need to find out.
Yeah, I think probably we went on so long, said so many ridiculous things during that big show last Sunday that it burned out his equipment.
That's
and he's
possible.
off the air. Have you listened to 100.1 since that show?
I listen to it all the time.
Oh, there you go. Is it still on air?
What, the 100.1 or us?
Yeah.
No, the
I know we're on air,
yeah, it's still on there.
so we didn't destroy the station or anything with all kinds with Doug's relativism.
It goes in and out, but
You didn't think Doug was a relativist?
No, it's just funny that you said that.
No.
It's possible.
Or so, again, you guys can feel free to call in. You can hear the other phone. You can? Yeah, the ringer's on. You can hear that other phone. Feel free to call in if you have questions. We're looking for pro-Bush people, anyone that has rational arguments for why it's better to have Bush in office than some of the competition, which is about the only position I would even stand on, is that I don't really see anyone else doing a better job. Which is a negative thing, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
Right.
everyone would destroy the country about it in the same way.
Right.
So if you are pro-Bush and you have some arguments, feel free to call in. The main topic was whether or not he's an alien, because that's the only explanation we have, and we did find some correlation between what we know about aliens and what we know about George Bush. The sub-theme is separation of church and state. We're talking about specifically the definition of separation of church and state and some of the effects. Before we move to morality, which was the next section, isn't that right, Howard?
that's right.
Howard's killing me. That's right. I would like to talk a little bit about, for informational purposes, Doobie's never went featured?
No. Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Right.
Well, these moderators it's just purely random?
I have no idea.
They just get drunk and they flip.
It might be later though too, because we tend to stay on so long that.
It's already almost 9 o'clock. The show's only supposed to last an hour to an hour and a half. We're ready to go 3 hours, but we aren't supposed to.
Do we have a lot of people in there?
I mean, there's people, but there's not a lot of viewers because it's not featured.
Oh, yeah.
So no one's going to find the show unless they know. Most of these people know about the show or are watching it from Philosophy Live. So feel free to call in about George Bush, about separation of church and state, or about Leslie Sherk. Apparently that seems to be a big issue. Before we move to morality, though, I do want to talk about the other versions of separation of church and state, or lack thereof. Because my personal belief is that it's more about the constituency and it's more about the populace in general being religious, because what we find in a lot of European countries is there is no separation of church and state, or no emphasis on it, or an archaic way of dealing with separation of church and state. England, for instance, has state-sponsored religion. Norway, the king of Norway actually is responsible for the church. Mexico, apparently the government of Mexico actually owns the rights to the churches. So what we find in a lot of these countries, is not the American way of doing it, which means that as America has evolved since the Founding Fathers, they have found a way to define for America what that separation is. But what we find in European countries is something that if we heard it being implemented in the United States, we would think would lead to, what, a bad question?
No, we just have someone who everyone in the chat room seems to think is anti-American, and they would just say they're just not American, and they're just making a lot of comments.
They might not be American.
Right, that's
On
what we're saying.
Skickum, it's global.
I know, that's what we're saying, but they just are making a lot of comments.
Well, ask them why, I mean, if someone's criticizing America, does that make them anti-American, or is it just because they said, I'm anti-American, I hate everyone in America?
They say they're not, they just think that we're all too full of ourselves.
That's definitely not somebody in America.
I know, we know they're not in America, they already said
I
that.
would criticize America all night long, so.
Right, we all would, actually.
I mean, I think Bush being an alien, really what we're saying is that from the top down, it's become such a problem that there's not much left not to criticize. I mean, I'm afraid to go to a hospital, I'm afraid to go to a courtroom, I'm afraid to drive on the highways. So I'm not sure what's left.
He's just saying America as a whole, not us individually or necessarily our presidents, but just America as a whole.
Tell them to grow some balls and say everyone in America.
You heard it straight from Nick Jade.
I'm
Grow some balls.
I'm Swiss.
I am Switzerland.
So the question really is how much this particular separation or how much these interpretations of the Constitution or how much these laws really affect the populace, and how the general belief is that morality should come from divine will, which is what we're about to talk about. And the caller actually did have a question for you. And now I forgot what it is.
Oh, great.
So
I wish I could
Well,
hear.
I think
more.
about.
what was the question he had for Leslie? He said,
Well, he was just talking about kind of like small town America and the belief.
no, I know what it was. It's on the tip of my microphone.
Lib, help us out.
No, he said, would the religious people in your town be fundamentalists? Would they be pushing their beliefs on other people? Or were they kind of people, he was describing Christians as he knows them to be people who were generally good people who weren't pushing their beliefs. I don't know what planet he lives on,
Well,
or if it's Doug land that he lived in.
that is kind of how it was.
Really?
Where I'm from, they're generally good people. I mean, their intentions are good, but they just have this kind of group delusion going on, and so they just kind of, uphold each other's beliefs because it's just like this solidarity thing.
But what if an outsider came in there, though? What if somebody came in that wasn't Christian or wasn't Nazarene, certainly? Would they want to convert them? Are their beliefs
yeah.
true beyond
They try
question?
they try to get people saved all the time.
And that's all he was saying, is that he didn't find that. And which doesn't surprise me because A, he's Jewish and B, he's
He doesn't
very
find
upper
that
class. Right.
Where
At
he's
Harvard,
from.
where he went to school.
Yeah, I mean small
But
town.
John Kerry came out and said in the last election that he was Christian. I mean, and yet you didn't see Christians jumping on his,
Well,
if the reason that conservatives or conservative Christians are voting for Bush because he's a Christian, not necessarily because of his politics, then it
Well-
would stand to reason that someone like Kerry would be just as likable to
But
them.
was John Kerry for abortion? He was pro-choice, wasn't he?
He was
That's a big
pro-choice.
issue with him
Yeah.
as well.
And don't you think people in your town would look at it that way? Wouldn't they say, well, and wouldn't they be smart enough to say, well, he's probably saying he's Christian because it worked for Bush in the
Yeah.
last two elections? And those people would say, okay, well, we're going to look at Christian politics. We're going to look at what parts of Christianity we agree with. And they would go to that extent. They just wouldn't say, let's analyze them on real, let's discuss real politics.
Yeah, I mean.
Is he going to attack other countries that don't attack us for no reason to embarrass everybody? They're not going to ask that. They're going to say, is he pro-choice or pro-life? Is that right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's on issues like that have to do with specific things that the Bible has to say about.
Even though like his economic policies might be completely incompatible with their own interests.
What was funny was that my dad thought he was actually doing good things. Like, it was just very strange. Like, everything that he did is like he thought he was doing the opposite. Even though the evidence showed that he was doing nothing good for the economy or anything.
Like voting,
Yeah.
the mind control.
It's true. It's like hypnotism almost. Like, they were hypnotized by him. And I don't know. It's just that he thought that he was really doing a great job. And I talked to him about it. He's like, no, I really do think he's doing a great job. He's helping the economy and he's, a Christian man.
So even though he wasn't helping the economy, and
He-
your dad would have been someone who would have benefited from a better economy,
Yeah,
there's no practical concern at all.
he really thought he was doing a good job.
And this is actually what I meant by the Jew's comments. You know, his point was that these people were nice and they seemed genuinely good, right? Every Christian I've known seems nice and genuinely good for the most part, just like everyone does. I mean, that was the point of the happiness show, is everyone seemed happy. You got a funny question, didn't you? What?
I can't say it now.
Are you having a heart attack or something?
Yes.
Do you want to read some of your Bush quotes before we move on to the moral
Sure.
epistemology section of the show?
I wish we could take
Preface
credit.
this by saying what they are.
Yeah, I wish we could take credit, you know, for coming up with
That was
these
the
or
best.
having listened to them ourselves, but we do have this little calendar that is our George W. Bushisms, which kind of makes our day when we read it every day. It's the thing I look forward to most.
That's what you look forward to most?
I think so, 'cause it makes me laugh my ass
I
off.
thought you liked coffee a lot.
I do like coffee a lot, but I don't
Or
look
green
forward
tea.
to it. I do like green tea. But,
Hey, can I talk bad about Starbucks or do I get sued?
go ahead.
No, that's a question. It's a legal question. That's not go ahead, I got your permission.
Will you get sued?
It's
No.
an opinion.
It's an opinion.
My
Okay.
opinion is
Like
that
if you say
nobody.
there's poison in their coffee, you can't drink it, you'll die, then.
You just said it. Now we're gonna get sued.
I'm not saying that, I'm just,
Using an example of what not to say.
yes.
It's not what you believe at all. Please specify that.
I do not believe that Starbucks. has
Don't say it
poison in their
again.
coffee that will kill you.
Okay. What I would like to say that is an opinion that is not just. What did you say? Oh, an example of something. Is that you shouldn't drink anything from Starbucks because they put a lot of syrup and sugary things in the drinks on purpose to get you addicted. Wait, I could get sued for that.
And their caffeine is like 300% stronger than normal caffeine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I do
they-
want to go to
They
Starbucks
just
then.
jack it up. I don't
Well,
know
then I
why,
want to go to
but-
Starbucks.
Tons of caffeine.
Okay, well, I'm gonna drink coffee at Starbucks, but don't drink green tea because they put melon syrup
Well, no,
in
it's because
it.
you got a Frappuccino.
I did not get a Frappuccino.
No, I know what you
Did I get a
got.
Frappuccino?
It wasn't
It's
a
a
Frappuccino,
green
but it
tea
was
Frappuccino.
It's a mix, and there's
Yeah.
that stuff in the mix.
I like
No, it
Starbucks
wasn't the
too.
Frappuccino. The Frappuccino was the one side menu. I ordered the other thing.
Yeah, but it's the same ingredients.
Yeah, I
The
know what
Frappuccino
you're
just
talking
has
about.
the blended ice.
Right, because I had the thing the day before you
Really?
did.
Okay, well, don't order anything from
Sorry.
Starbucks unless it's regular coffee or you're going to shoot your blood pressure through the
And we
roof.
digress.
Sorry. I just wanted to
So,
say that because I was
as-
sick for a whole day after drinking a green tea sugar bomb. from
As George
Starbucks.
Bush would say, see, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda. No one even knows what that means,
It was kind of funny because he was repeating and repeating himself.
right? I can't even read that one.
What do you mean you can't even read it?
Sometimes there's some of them makes so little sense that you can't even.
Right.
It's not even funny anymore.
Okay, so speaking about Rudy Giuliani, he said, he has certainly earned a reputation as a fantastic mayor because the results speak for themselves. I mean, New York's a safer place for him to be. Does anyone know what that means?
Some of them are just so ridiculously incoherent.
Yeah.
Like that's why they put him on the calendar because you can't even figure out what he said that was dumb.
I like that one. How do you know? Oh, this is in response to he's explaining the need for educational accountability. How do you know if you don't measure if you have a system that simply suckles kids through? I read that just as it is.
That's awesome.
The Senate needs to leave money in the proposed budget to not only reduce all marginal rates, but to eliminate the death tax so that people who build up assets are able to transfer them from one generation to the next, regardless of a person's race.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't even. I like the ones that are short and you get them.
I like the one that's something about humans and fish can peacefully coexist or something. Like, why
You outdid
would
yourself on that
humans
one.
and
Huh?
fish?
Or referring to immigrant workers, they can get in line like those who have been here legally and have been working to become a citizenship in a legal manner.
Or can you become a citizenship?
But if you've been laid off, you're 100% unemployed, and I worry about you.
Yeah, I love that one. That's one of my favorite ones. It's a myth to think I don't know what's going on. It's a myth to think that I'm not aware that there's opinions that don't agree with mine, because I'm fully aware of that.
I didn't get that one. Found a good one.
No, it's just so funny how we're all like, we don't understand.
They're like jokes that you don't get.
This comments on what private accounts could do for Social Security funds. It means your own money would grow better than that which the government can make it grow, and that's important.
But Iraq have got people there that are willing to kill And they're hard-nosed killers, and we will work with the Iraqis to secure their future. Those hard-nosed killers.
I'm glad we secured their future.
Part of the facts is understanding we have a problem, and part of the facts is what you're going to do about it. A tax cut
loves
is
these
really
things.
one of the anecdotes to coming out of an economic illness. Like half of these I can't even read because the grammar's so bad. I can't read it bad. Like I have to correct it.
Is that it for your calendar?
I want
Yeah.
to comment on one of the things
We're
that you
literally
said
fine.
earlier.
Okay, Howard, please go ahead.
He was talking about how Bush went to Yale, but what's interesting about Bush's background is that he comes from a really privileged background, but he's sort of portrayed as like the every guy, the ordinary man. You know, he was really accessible to, you know, not just to the upper elite, you know, portion of society, but also to the sort of everyday man.
Oh yeah, like he's a regular.
Yeah, he's a regular Joe. Yeah, but
Yeah,
he's
which is
not.
not.
Well, intellectually, he is a regular Joe. That's
He's worse than a
about the
regular
only thing
Joe.
I agree with.
Somebody wants to talk about immigration, but they spelled it wrong.
What about it?
Hey, I'm on the air live. Why don't you tune into the show? Go to philosophylive.com and then go in the chat room and then ask us questions.
The same folks
Otherwise, I'll
that
sit
are
here and talk
bombing
on my cell
innocent
phone on
people in
camera. I can't
Iraq
embarrass myself.
were the ones who attacked us in America on September the 11th.
George Bush quote.
That was a George Bush quote. Thanks, Max.
Where was the really funny one? There was one that you read the other day that I fell out of my
But
chair.
I don't know.
It's because you save them and then you put them somewhere else.
I know.
And now you don't have all the best ones.
No, these are them. I have them on the table.
There were some that were so funny about like saving the terrorists or something. And then eating our own children or something. Was one of them. Killing our own children.
No.
That's what I remember. All right, let's move on to this where we get our morality from, since it is derived from the separation of church and state, and it seems.
Oh, no, wait. This is the,
Oh,
the funny
God.
one. No, this was
I've
the one that
started
made
like
me
5
laugh.
times.
Okay. The reason I believe in a large tax cut is because it's what I believe.
That's a good one.
That's the rationale of our president, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we have to say. Or arbalist. Look up the word. I don't know. Maybe I made it up. Anyway, it's an arbotreist, somebody who knows about trees.
You called it an arbalist in the first place? We need someone that can imitate George Bush.
I
reading
know.
these
I
things.
thought about doing it, but then I just decided
I
not
don't know if
to.
you sound like George Bush.
I could sound like George Bush.
I bet if I practiced, I could sound like George Bush. I'm certainly not any smarter.
Did
you
Son just
believe-
come in the room?
Yeah, I told him to come in there.
Son needs to call us and talk about George Bush.
You know, if we got Son on the phone, that would really be entertaining.
You want me to call
I
him?
think he's from the town you grew up in.
Really?
Yeah.
Son, you need to call in to that house number.
Oh yeah, because he called my cell phone. Tell him to call in if he's gonna
No way.
do pro Bush.
Is he from Louisiana?
No, he's from Texas.
Really? No.
Very similar mindset.
George Bush
He may
also
be that
said, more than 2
bet you
decades
call him.
later, it is hard to imagine the Revolutionary War coming out any other way. Oh, but Son did say that Jesus is Lord.
Yeah, see, that's what he believes. There you go. That's all we need to know. Can we get back to the moral?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, back to morality or whatever.
Before I rant about Ayn Rand and
Yes.
the idea that morality and science come from the same place, or science needs to be that thing we use to discover morality. Because it seems to be the case that what we're dealing with the current state of affairs of separation of church and state is that morality is derived from divine will. And Howard, you had some stuff to say about.
Well, I think one of the common arguments is that if we didn't, where would our morality come from if we didn't have religion? That somehow we'd be amoral without religion.
Right, that's what it was.
And that's what informs, I think, some people's opinion that separation of church and state is, maybe-
Impractical.
Right, exactly.
Right. And you do seem to hear the argument a lot. You hear the argument that morality is derived from God, and without God being in all of these different places and without him influencing politics, we would have less moral culture. And what the philosophers seem to have said is that we've never actually given science a chance to explain morality. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
It cracks me up the way you do that. Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. So, do you guys have anything else to say about
Well, I mean, we could ask questions like, what would society look like, without morality? So we can kind of come up with a definition, or we just kind of come up with a definition of what is morality. If we're saying that it's something that's independent of religion, morality is something that we use to evaluate, the behaviors of others. Religion is what informs our opinions about the supernatural, whereas morality tells us how to behave among others in our relationships within society. Morality, the notion of morality is inherently social.
Right.
I think
Those are
religion.
just a couple of points we can elaborate on.
I think religion also tries to define morality or make a moral statement about things that really don't matter or shouldn't be as big a deal, and it should be left up to the individual. They try to put this blanket kind of coding on everything, like abortion,
Right.
for instance.
So you say that religion basically tries to make some things that are private, public.
Yeah, exactly.
And make private concerns public concerns.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Vegas, the 15th through the 17th. I may have to go to St. Louis. Roll the dice and try again with the dates. I'm using this instead of my phone. I hope you guys don't mind.
We also make sure Candace is getting us into trouble.
Son, I'm going to draw a picture for you and put it up on the camera.
Another good question is, what would be the connection between society's moral codes and its religious beliefs?
Okay, sorry. Ask the question again. I was making a little smiling mushroom.
Oh my gosh. We don't draw mushrooms on this show.
Yes, we do.
What is the connection, if any, between a society's moral code and its religious beliefs?
I mean, what is the legitimate connection, or what kind of connections have we established?
Should there be any connection? Obviously, we say no because
Well, I mean, I think we're getting back to the same discussion we had last Sunday, because Doug's position and Augustine's position is that man's not capable of making moral judgment. And every time, and this is the debate about history, is that when you look back at history and you say, oh, history is so horrible, that's why we've had these problems with religion, what you find is that people have a tendency to not, to fall into two camps about why we have such bad history, because the problem of evil, of course, is, in a sense, blaming God for that. So what the Christians are doing is saying that, the reason we find so much evil in history is because man, I guess because he ate an apple. I mean, you know me, I know that the chick was the one that ate the apple, but essentially man is not imbued with the kind of clarity or intellectual development to understand morality as it is, and that God is somehow this father that, it's hard for me to even follow. It's so dumb that I can't even wrap my mind around it. And that's why when Doug was talking about Augustine, I thought, I've read Augustine, and this stuff is so ridiculous. It's just constantly anti-man. That's the problem Nietzsche had with it. This whole thing that if you demean man's intellectual ability far enough, you're going to end up with a race of people who don't know how to deal with morality. And that's why.
That's the point.
It seems like what you're saying, that Dave's argument was kind of saying, is that you have to look to Revelation, and the Bible or religious texts are considered recordings of God's revelation, and that's the only place that you can really come to sort of flesh out these moral issues, because they're so complicated that we as humans don't have the capacity to sort them out ourselves. We have to go to these other texts, these other sources that are divinely inspired, right?
Right, I think it's almost a Marx argument, because really it's a question of where you stand philosophically on enlightenment and on idealism, because Marx's idea and Rand's idea and even Nietzsche's idea was that, Nietzsche's idea was that some people can do this and that others can't. But the idealist perspective is that man can be empowered in such a way that as a civilization he can make things better. So of course that better is a moral evaluation, which means and these anti-Christian thinkers or atheist atheist thinkers believe that by doing the opposite of what Augustine did, by affirming man's ability to reason the way we did about other scientific things, the way we did about man's relationship with nature. We would find that his ability to deal with morality would be certainly successful in some way.
Right.
And the argument, of course, that the atheists make is that a country like ours, which allows so much freedom, is now governed by so many more laws than it was ever intended to be governed by. That the United States is. I know you're about to talk.
I just had a thought. Is that it seems to me that religion almost is a crutch for some people because they give away their responsibility, and so that makes them, just kind of be like, oh well, if I do this, it's not my fault. So they have no real grasp on what morality really is. It's just like it's always somewhere else. It's not real personal to them.
I think that's a good point.
This is hearing a thought.
I think it's a good point that, I think a lot of religious people or people who consider themselves religious turn to these religious texts to provide the answers for them, and that really keeps them from having to, sit down and really flesh out what is morality.
But again, you're coming back to the idealist argument, because what the people are saying is that ultimately man is incapable of doing this. Not that his brain isn't designed even to do intellectual things. His brain will always give up. His brain will always choose to do something other than do the work of moral evaluation or scientific moral evaluation. So,
well, but the flaw though with looking to religious texts to supply your morality is that interpretation is necessary, and you have to draw on morality to make appropriate interpretations of these works. I mean, there's so much within, say, the Bible, for example, that's open to interpretation. It's been interpreted in many different ways. That you in order to make good interpretation or to make a valid interpretation, you have to draw on some sort of sense of morality. So the idea that you're deriving your morality from religious texts is contradictory to this idea that there is interpretation. You have to be drawing on some kind of outside morality to determine whether this specific clause or whatever that you're looking at in the Bible is to be looked at. Example would really be great here.
Well, I think individual doctrines kind of take care of that, because instead of the individual doing it, that's what a church is. They form this. They form a definition of all these different aspects of morality, and so that's what the specific religion is. And so the people just decide to follow that. And,
but they're all fairly similar, though.
But they do vary, kind of drastically from religion to religion. But there's a core, a basic core.
Well, I read the Islam, the 10 Commandments of Islam or whatever they are, and I couldn't tell them apart.
Really?
Not just, there's some slight differences, but in their stupidity, you really can't tell them apart because they don't focus on things that we would call laws.
Yeah, but I think a lot of religions even go beyond just the 10 Commandments. There's so much other stuff that's involved.
Right, but I'm just saying all the other extensions of those things.
Yeah.
So relativized.
Take the idea of thou shalt not kill, which is in the Bible, or an eye for an eye. Each of these have come from the Bible, but depending on who's doing the interpreting, we're trying to apply it to something like, let's say, the death penalty, or abortion, or even war.
That's the big one.
Yeah, those. That's open. You're going to have to borrow from some sort of notion of morality to figure out which way you lean, whether you're going to go with the thou shalt not kill or the an eye for an eye.
That's what's so contradictory about it. When I just don't understand why people will support a war, when it, especially Christians. I'm talking about Christians really, but it says in the Bible their belief do not kill. That's direct contradiction.
Well, but isn't the whole point they want to kill people that aren't Christian?
Yeah, kind of.
But do you see the point that I'm making though? That you have.
Right, you're saying that you're given kind of maybe ambiguity or false dilemma or.
Well, right, but that you have to draw on. That I'm making the point that just if there is any kind of interpretation that has to be made, if anything's left to be interpreted from the Bible. When you have, let's say, two contradictory clauses, you have to rely on some sort of sense of morality that's not being directly provided from the work itself. You know what I mean?
Right, that's the next point I was going to bring up. My point was that the damage that Jesus the moron did, who didn't even exist, And the problem that the Bible does is exist in a philosophical vacuum.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
It intentionally doesn't provide those things because these people that wrote these parables, in the 1st and 2nd century were people that weren't concerned with writing down facts. They weren't concerned with creating a concrete moral structure.
Right.
So it has evolved into something that it wasn't.
And
And it's actually
it's-
served the Christians over thousands of years because without some kind of position, it's not as easy to argue with them.
Max.
Do you have something to say? Mr. Max, I hear you're back. That's great. You found a pro-Bush argument. Right. No, you have to prove that you're a banana to me. Okay. Right?
Catholics do that.
Do what?
They do that.
Right. Right, except that I think that they believe they're deriving their morality from religion, and that's actually in some ways what's doing the damage, because in a sense, since there is no moral structure to what they're actually absorbing, like you said, I think religion does try to define itself, but it defines itself without a rational basis. So they kind of rely on that kind of subjectivity in order to do whatever they want. For instance, if they had science hanging over their head, maybe they would feel more pressure. Oh yeah, we wouldn't want that to happen, sorry. That's impossible. Take off your shirt. Religion gives hope to the hopeless. That's why I wanted him to call in. Can you make him call in? I don't think he knows how to dial a phone in his weakened state. I know he doesn't want to call in because he thinks I'm going to make fun of him, but I do kind of I like those kinds of opinions, I like to get people on here that make really bad religious arguments.
He said no.
Is he serious?
He's always saying no.
Is he really like that? Is he serious?
Oh, yeah.
Saying this?
Gosh.
Is he on?
Yeah.
Weasel.
I don't understand.
Ask him if he's looking for buried treasure.
Oh, God. Maybe let's wrap up the phone call.
Yeah, I think that's what black trim means. It means if you are cutting your hair and then dyeing it darker black, that's what it means. Yeah, someone else accused me of that, and unfortunately for you guys, it hasn't started yet. But you know what's going to happen is I'm going to get gray in my hair, I'm still going to get all your girlfriends away from you. Huh? What does that mean? That's really weird.
It derailed entirely.
Yeah, I guess that's what it means. Okay, well, I'm going to let you go, Mr. Max. Thanks a lot. I think that's kind of a good point, because I think that's the way a lot of maybe critics nowadays are looking at religion. I think that's a pretty valid argument.
Oh my gosh.
You want me to ask him? No, I don't think either one of them really are talking to me anymore, so you're going to have to be the one to ask him. Okay, thank you, Mr. Max. Wow. That is kind of a good point that he brings up. This kind of disconnect between even following the morals that they're supposed to be following. Now, you know me, I don't believe that the moral system is right in the first place. I think it's actually opposite of what it's supposed to be. But it's the disconnect. And I would just say that disconnect exists because the system is so misdefined.
Right.
I think just like I think no Christians really believe in God, I don't believe that Christians believe nonsense. Well, I mean, you can argue with me because you come from that system, but
I don't see that.
because you're never going to get them to admit it. I think subconsciously, people that believe
But
in those kinds of crazy, nonsensical, like things without evidence, when you live in a world of evidence, seems ridiculous to your subconscious.
Yeah, but you don't think they've convinced themselves?
I think they believe
Very
their
much
conscious
that.
life. Now that I have Freud and the conscious, subconscious, I believe everything on that.
I don't know. I mean, I
If a
think,
girl doesn't like me when I meet her in a bar, I think it's her conscious not liking me.
well, I
not
think
her
the subconscious can be repressed so much that it just kind of goes away.
No, but what I'm saying is that I think it does affect them. Is what I'm saying. Do you have another caller?
Someone's gonna call. Max wants to hear about my panties again.
Max has really been quite a little, like,
Urge?
philanderer. Is that a good word?
Yes.
You have to be married to philander?
I don't think so.
What was my point? I was making a point before I got rudely interrupted. Oh, about these people. This is my point. When their subconscious actually determines their actions. So what you get from these people who claim to be religious and aren't religious is the lip service to religion and the lip service to faith, but a kind of subconscious desire to be an atheist. In other words, completely ignoring the moral system.
I've never had experience with
Okay.
Christians like that. Like all.
Why don't they all kill themselves? And don't say there's some statement in the Bible that says don't kill
No,
yourself.
that's a sin. Yeah, they'll go to hell.
Okay, but I'm not saying suicide. I'm saying, why are they afraid of death? I've never met a Christian that I know that's not afraid of, actually you said you were afraid of death and I don't believe you, but I mean, if I come up to them with a match or a gun or a knife,
Yeah, they're gonna be scared.
right, that's their subconscious.
My mom is the most beautiful person I've ever met. Like she's
Right,
scared of
and
everything.
if this other world is so much better,
I don't know.
and there's nothing in the Bible that
It
says,
doesn't make sense.
Pro Bush, we've got
you
Pro
don't like
Bush.
that idea?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, it's inherent within life. All life struggles to just survive. It's part of our core. I mean,
I mean, that's kind of my point. I mean,
no, but
I
you can't
agree
use
with
that
you.
as, I mean, you can't say that they don't believe in something and that it's because of fear. I mean, you see what I'm saying? You're
Yeah.
saying you doubt their beliefs.
What she's saying is, you're saying that they're like, I mean, atheism is actually, it is a belief. It's not the absence of a belief in God.
I mean,
I mean,
affirmative belief.
That's
No,
not
it's-
true. Do you guys miss our first show?
It's not
Did you guys miss our first show?
It's not the absence
Weak
of
atheism
any
is
belief.
absent, strong atheism is.
Okay, well, that's how you're defining it then.
No, I'm defining
But
it.
you're
How
saying
the
that,
dictionary defines.
okay,
Pro Bush.
whatever.
Pro Bush?
on the line,
They
yeah.
sound legitimate?
Yeah.
Can we get back to this, Howard?
Okay.
Okay. This is Nick, you're on Philosophy Live. Hello? How you doing? I'm pretty good. I'm just bereft of Bush supporters tonight. So you're a Bush supporter? Oh God. Hey, Bush isn't running for office again, is he?
No, we can't.
I hope not. All right, so do what? Don't do what? Oh, because of my phone. So do you have anything good to say about George Bush? Your argument is that Bush shows dignitaries a good time. Hey, did you vote for George Bush? You did vote for George Bush. So what we're getting is kind of information from a Bush supporter, even if you're not supporting Bush. Like we're finding out what it's like to be a Bush supporter and what kind of person Bush supporters are and stuff like that. Right? Bush doesn't go back on his word? Didn't he lie about the Iraq War? I mean, isn't that kind of going back on your word? Saying that we were going in for this reason, then going in for this reason, and then now we really have no reason.
should. He's
Owen.
president.
He said Owen too. Are you from Louisiana? He said Owen just like you do.
Owen.
He's from the. It's a South thing. That's the best thing she does. No, she's
I'm
from the South.
and I say Owen.
He can't hear you through the microphone.
Why not?
So you don't have any supports for Bush. You don't have any like evidence for why, because there are things about Bush. Right, but Bush can't run again. This is a guy who voted for Bush. Do you have a Bush sticker on your car? Bush bumper sticker? Yeah, I don't either. So anyway, Barack Obama, you're going to tell me about Barack Obama, how he's not as good as Bush. No, totally disagree with you. But
What about Ron Paul?
no, Ron Paul's a moron.
He's a Republican.
Yeah, Ron Paul's crazy. Ron Paul. So do you think George Bush should run again? Is that what you're saying? Because we could just rewrite the Constitution for Bush, really.
Ron Jeremy.
But what about Ron Jeremy? Can Ron Jeremy run? Yeah, he's a Republican, I think, from Arkansas. He's,
Yeah.
is he a porn star too? He,
Ron
right,
Paul.
Jeremy for president.
right now he's a governor of Oregon. Yeah, he's a governor of Oregon, and he's thinking about running in the Republican primary. His platform has something to do with facial hair. I don't know. Okay, so you don't have any more supports for Bush or any supports for Bush, because I'm gonna have to let you go, because we're really trying to find pro-Bush.
Yeah.
Okay. The only honest politician. Okay, I'm gonna make an point. Okay, thanks for calling in. Okay.
Wow.
So what I
Wow.
no, I didn't want to keep him on the phone, but really what it does demonstrate is my point, which is that, I mean, I hate to be nihilistic about it, and this is always in response to your arguments about politicians being deviant, greedy, conspiratorial aliens. My point is that it's not a matter of the politicians and the big corporations, it's a matter of the populace. It's a matter of the masses, the voters.
We have one person calling in.
That's the only guy out there that thinks like that.
I don't know. I just don't.
Okay, this is my
I know
point.
there's-
Nobody is making arguments.
Right.
And it's not because there aren't arguments to be made. I could sit here and make a pro-Bush argument. I'm just afraid I'm going to get struck by Democratic lightning. Okay? I can make one. The fact of the matter is the population, and I'm not saying this because of one caller. I've been telling you this for, how long have we known each other? 3 years?
Yeah.
I've been telling you this since, that the whole problem is that nobody can make arguments.
But
Your
why is
boyfriend
that?
is always
The
gonna
man, because of the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The man, I mean, who decides how our education system is structured? Who decides everything? Who publishes everything? And basically our whole existence, our whole reality is constructed by them. So.
She agrees with you.
Yeah, I'm totally,
Conspiracy
I'm,
theories.
hey, David Icke, all of them, seriously. Like,
Do you like David Icke?
I talk about him a lot.
oh, he's an articulate genius.
Wait,
Anyway,
that's the reptilian.
I don't necessarily subscribe to the
Does he
reptilian.
think that George Bush is a reptilian?
He
Or a
thinks
reptile, I
he's
guess?
of the bloodline.
Yeah, the bloodline, there's a little.
Why aren't you talking about that? That's really interesting.
Shut up. What?
I can't talk about him being a
No,
reptile.
I'm just, it's funny.
Hey, I didn't want to disagree with this idea. I want to disagree with this idea that everything's a conspiracy.
No, I mean, there's been a lot of research done by this man. Who
Is
has,
he a reptile too?
Who? David Icke?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You're being sacrilegious now. Sorry.
No, I mean, okay, go
My
ahead.
point is this, and I hear a lot from academics, I hear a lot from what seem like intelligent media people and authors, that the blame needs to be placed on big corporations, on greed, on these people who form these conspiracies and ultimately hide the information from the general population,
Okay, they
that
do.
take away your freedom.
They do.
And this is my point back when everyone wanted me to talk bad about the United States, which I love doing, and that's this. That the United States has set up a system where you can take back your freedom. And the reason people
But
aren't
people
taking
don't know that because they're
people do, the same way homeless people don't know to get a job.
yeah, but because
Who's
they're
to
not
blame
being
here?
told the truth. Like the education is just not
The truth
there.
is already there. The problem is that people aren't looking for the truth, not that they're not being told the truth by their parent figure
I
politicians.
mean, we've been dumbed down.
Whose fault is it you've been dumbed down? That is,
Opiates, everything. I mean, they're just
Everything,
trying to take our consciousness away. That's what
Fluoride in
they're
the water.
doing.
and this is a great debate. The debate is whether it's a conspiracy or whether it's a fundamental
We're
flaw.
all just animals. Of course we're going to watch porn instead of watching like PBS. Obviously. I mean, the masses, the Joe
But this is
Sixpack,
Augustine all
what are
over
they
again, isn't it? I mean, the position that you're hearing from these two is that man is incapable.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Because when left free,
Clearly.
we end up just basically falling into, you know, a hedonistic state.
Are you agreeing with
know-
me?
Yes.
I'm not saying that man is incapable at all. I think
You are
we
saying that. You're saying you're capable, but you're not capable of being capable.
No, but I mean, okay, just
Does that make sense?
because not everybody is as aware of things. People have not become aware of a lot of things because a lot of the truth has been hidden and distorted by the media. That
Come to have the expectation that everything, that they have the right to be entertained no matter what, you know, what we're talking about. We were talking about politics or even religion. I mean, take televangelism, for example. I mean, I think that, yeah, I think that this idea of entertainment is, I'm agreeing with you guys. You know.
Have you
Yeah.
seen a child, like a 4-year-old, when they're watching TV? Like the
They
look
talk
that
about
they have in their
ambient
eyes?
light, almost
Oh
like
my gosh.
like staring at fire.
Yeah,
it's
it is
mesmerizing.
disturbing.
I know, but I've wondered, like, what kind of, I don't know, subliminal message, I know it's another conspiracy theory, but I mean, seriously, a television is a very powerful tool for anyone who would want to do that. Because, I mean, just the whole act of watching a television, it does hypnotize you.